We are in the parts collection here for Zephyr parts, and I'm going to ask JB to kind of allow me to come along with him as he sorts through some of the things he knows he's going to need and see what we have and identify what we're going to need and what we have ready to go.
What we've done in this area here is we've tried to organize the various parts for the 38s and 9s. The 37 Zephyr stuff is kept elsewhere, but this is almost without exception 38 and 9. So
okay.
We could kind of focus on that because that's the focus of what we do.
That's what we're doing here. Yeah.
We have each item is almost all of them are identified as to what year, where they go, even if it's fairly obvious. There's some really rare things here, like we have two convertible doors here that are not assigned to any particular car, but they're really nice shape. So when we get to a convertible 8 or 9, then these could be pressed into service if the doors are just not any good at all.
Right.
That would be hard to imagine. But then we also have some convertible windows, which are unique to the 8 and 9, and we were able to buy those, or I think we actually traded for them, to be honest, if I recall. And that's sometimes that's all only we're going to get it from somebody. They have an extra part that's real rare, and you have a part that's real rare. Instead of trying to exchange money and figure out how that works, you just exchange with them and
Gotcha.
and trade. The hinges are unique, like we talked about, I think at one time, that for
the trunk hinges?
The trunk hinges are unique. It's good news and bad news. If you have them, it's good news. If you don't, it's really bad news, because reproducing them is extremely difficult. Whenever we were able to buy one, we bought them, and we have a fair number of sets of rear decklet hinges.
Okay.
Then over here we got stuff that's just strictly motor internal. So we've got all the new old stock pistons, new old stock rings, new old stock bearings, new old stock fuel pumps, new old stock oil pumps, although we usually convert to a more of a later type of oil pump to give us better oil pressure. We also have water pumps that are available in case we have a failure. Try to keep at least 5 or 6 of those built and in stock. Then over here we've got kind of a potpourri of stuff that is also unique to the cars. Down here we got the stuff that goes on the back of the transmissions, drive shafts. This is a piece that mates up to the back of the transmission that was unique to the Zephyr. We have a complete one here that is complete from front to rear, and it's also, I believe, been rebuilt. It is rebuilt, and you can see that everything about the 38 and 9 transmission is unique, and these have become really, really hard to find and very, very expensive. And we have quite a few of them, just that we've aggregated over the years for the cars that we do. And then I've also reproduced the shifters out of which are unique, as you can see.
Yeah, that was not
in an accident. That was
it's supposed to look like that.
It's supposed to look like that because it goes up through that waterfall affair, comes out the side of it so that you have access to it without actually having it down around your feet, which was a very challenging job, and they figured out how to do it. This is some of the chrome trim that we keep, hubcaps for 8s and 9s, buckets, and then up here we also have a number of original air cleaners for original cars that are going to be using, like a show car for points, for instance, would be going for a different look. They would have a single 2-barrel. They would have a unique carburetor and unique air cleaner, and so we keep some of those mostly for trading, because we're not normally using stock air cleaners because we're using multiple carburetor setups.
Right.
But there are people that like to do them stock, and so we do some trading back and forth.
Okay.
We got a number of fender skirts for 8s and 9s originals that we use. And then out of that we might have 3 that we make up a set of 2 for each car. That car has its own, and they're in good shape, so we're not going to be looking for too much in the way of parts.
Is the gas tank here?
That's an original gas tank, again, for the original guys that want to do that. We don't put original tanks in because they're too much trouble, so we put brand new tanks in, and we get a little bit more capacity, and we also don't have the problems attendant to a used gas tank.
Gotcha.
We have quite a few heads. We only keep aluminum heads. which were available for a while, and were kind of a problem. And so, you know, every 4 heads you buy, you might get 1 or 2 good ones. So we're always looking for these, and then we identify them as to whether or not they're machined, or whether they're machinable, and whether they're useful.
Gotcha. What do you have back here in this section?
Okay, this is the area where we keep all the seat-related items. The 8s and 9s and the 37s as well had their own unique seat and seat hardware. And to make it even more difficult, it was only common to coupes. And so that means a fraction of a fraction. So what you're doing is you're trying to find them over time, and we've been looking for a number of years. But what we have here are some reproductions that we have created out of brass and then plated. So you can see that these are not, in fact, originals, but we take these brass castings, we machine them, polish them, and then have them plated. And this is a pair that's already been plated. Those are the really beautiful side pieces you see on 8s and 9s. We have the bolts, we have the side pieces that are really just for show. These are also extremely rare and unique to only the coupes and convertibles. So
when you're planning for this build, are you, as you're looking through your inventory here, are you seeing anything that you don't have that you're going to need?
I'm pretty sure we have everything. We're going to have to go through the various pieces of trim on the 38 because it has, let's see, what would it be, 16? It has about 25 different pieces of chrome on it, just on the side of the car. And this is where we store the, this is actually 38 through 40.
Okay.
And there'll be a bundle in here, probably one of these bundles that's, you can tell 38s because they have a different profile than the 39s. So that's why we kind of let them stick out here, and we can really just tell what they are just by looking at the profile of them. This is a 9, if I'm not mistaken. You can see that it has the V shape, and then the 38 has ribs running down it.
I see.
So we'll just go through these and make sure we have all of the appropriate pieces. We also have a number of parts cars so that they have a bit of trim left on them. Typically we try to strip the trim off of the cars before they get set out over there so that we have a better idea what we actually have.
Right.
And that's really important to know, because if we're going to be out looking for something, we need to know it. The seat, the seat frames in the 38s and 9s also have their own seat bases.
Wow.
So that makes it even more fun. So the 4-door sedans are no help to you, and they're 95% of the cars that were built.
Do you know, just you telling me how many unique parts are for a coupe or a convertible is making me think about how expensive it was to tool up to build these cars in the first place. Because
it was so extraordinarily expensive, and there was, as we talked about earlier, Edsel Ford had absolutely no concern for making money. That was the last thing in his mind. He just wanted to do something that was really literally a piece of art. And if it cost $4 grand and they could only get 3, then so, oh well. You know, he had an enormous industrial giant dad who could, you know, feed money in the back door if it was necessary. So it really was never any concern about it. That's one of the things you see in these cars, is the complete abandonment of any idea of economy. They just wanted to build it. The monocoque portion of it alone made it really expensive. It was the first really monocoque car, in my estimation, a production car in the world. So they had to you know, do all that engineering work. They had to pay for it. Those costs were built into a very small number of cars. The coupes and convertibles, there's a couple hundred of them. So you can imagine how expensive that was. There's no way they were going to make money on that project. But the bigger company was able to kick in the money when the Zephyrs and the bigger V-12 cars lost massive amounts of money. Nobody was really caring about that. They were really more concerned about doing something of quality. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I'm so attracted to them.
Yeah, that's really great. Tell me what these are right here.
Okay, these are the Distributors, which are unique to the V-12. And there's a gentleman back east that rebuilds these, and we keep a stock of them. These are the cores, and then we have the rebuilt ones that are kept here. and his name is Jerry Richmond, and he's been doing them, I guess, for 35 years is my recollection. And just does an amazing job. He kind of updates them a little bit, makes them a little bit more reliable, and we've had really good success with them.
Oh, that's excellent.
And we built them into every motor, and then we also try to keep one spare for each car so that you actually have one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you need one.
If you need one and don't have to wait around for it.
Gotcha. Very cool.
So these are the rebuilt ones. These are all the electrical components are all on this top shelf. Starters and anything of that nature are all kept in the same area, so we don't have to go looking around for them. Over here.
Tell me, JB, what is this? This looks like brand new.
Well, these are restored later spindles that we put on the 38s and 9s. These come off of 4041, and they're getting really tough to find. And what these do is allow us to bolt these on and then take a late model disc brake setup and actually just bolt it right on.
Wow.
So we don't have to cut up the car. We don't have to change the geometry of the front end.
So these
are made to go
those are
on
for
the
backing
car.
plate of a disc brake setup.
Exactly. And the reproduction disc brakes that you can buy now will mate up to these. They will not mate up to the original spindles on the 38-9.
Wow. Okay.
So that was a real boon because, and we have some guys here that have been doing suspensions for 40 years, and they're the ones that figured it out. I was amazed that they were able to figure that out, but we tried it and it worked, and the car sits exactly right. There's camber's correct. Everything's correct.
That is incredible.
Yep.
Cool. Well, that's a big part of the kind of
a big part of the
modification.
modernization.
Yeah, that's good. Very good. What am I looking at right here?
Okay, the one in the foreground with the green heads, that's a core that is in good shape, relatively low miles, hasn't been set out in the weather, so it's a candidate for rebuild. The one behind it is a Ed Smith engine that we had done a year or so ago, and then there's another core just beyond that one, and then there's a rebuilt engine in the back that was built by one of the founders of the Zephyr Club back in the day, and we were able to buy it, and then we went through it and checked it to make sure everything was good.
So anyway, we're looking at looking for parts that might be helpful for the 38 Zephyr build, and even though I'd like you to explain to me, JB, what do you look for, knowing that some of these are sedans, and typically the cars that are being built these days are either coupes or convertibles, typically?
That's correct. Now, there are some sedans being built. They're still beautiful cars, and I've seen a number of them, mostly reasonably original, because the cost of bringing them back to a good usable car is pretty stiff. So you're not going to do that on a car that's not worth a heck of a lot.
Right.
But the sedans have a number of things that we can use on the coupes and convertibles. The front end of this car, the sheet metal is actually pretty good.
And this is a 38?
This is a 38. You can tell by the side medallion placing. And
okay, that's the giveaway real quick right there.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
This looks like an eagle's wing built into the sheet metal, which is really intricate. And it's one of the reasons people love 38s.
Yeah, it is beautiful. And it's got, I mean, you can just, even with some of the parts missing, you see the styling and the
and you
design.
can see this car's never really been near water. The sheet metal is really nice. A little bit of surface rust, but nothing too awful bad. And if you notice that this is where the body is welded to the frame. That's how it differs from a Ford or a Chevrolet.
Right, so that would be two pieces right there where metal is bolted to a frame.
Exactly, and this was made to sit down over the frame and be welded.
Interesting.
As opposed to sitting on top of the frame and be bolted.
Right.
When you weld all that together, you gain a lot of torsional strength. You get the whole structure of the car gets stiffer, so it requires less dampening in the suspension and that sort of thing. So it really is a very advanced kind of way to build an automobile, especially in a production car.
Right.
If you see here, you can see where it's welded here. That's the factory. And this has got the factory. This is pretty much an original car.
Okay. Very good. So these would be the factory V-12 mounts right here?
Yes, exactly. You see how they're rubber
Yep. It's kind of disintegrated, but we see it.
It dampens the vibration so that the passenger doesn't get the vibration of the motor sent through the chassis and to the passenger.
Interesting. Okay.
So pretty sophisticated cars for their time, they really are.
Right. And what else is different on this is a sedan, so tell me, what are the things that you obviously can't use on a coupe or convertible that are different?
The commonality starts right here. So forward of the windshield, it's the same regardless. It could be a two-door sedan, it could have been a convertible or a coupe. And then, of course, here is where it starts changing, transitioning into a four-door. And then, of course, the roof has to be longer to accommodate the second set of doors. And then you have another window arrangement that allows, you know, some light to get into the rear passenger compartment, which is enormous.
That rear quarter window here is actually
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can crack this window, open the back windows, and get ventilation through the car.
Did the windows roll down in the back doors as well?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah,
and
you get a lot of ventilation then.
The mechanisms in the four doors, there is a small part of the winder mechanism that's usable. After that, of course, the frame is for a much wider window for a two-door or a coupe.
Right.
But there's still some commonality in those parts, so we want to never throw away anything from a four-door that might be, you know, used directly or modified to be able to be used in a coupe or convertible.
Interesting. What is that piece on the floor here?
That's the seat shell. They were having really elaborate seats in these cars.
Okay, so that was a shell behind the front seat?
That's the front seat shell.
I see. That's probably this.
And then the back seat is also very large. Probably accommodate 4 people. So you can literally get 7 people in this car without any problem at all.
Wow. Suicide door minivan.
Right, exactly. Only you're styling in this. In a minivan, not so much.
Wow.
Now these are really actually very attractive cars, even in the four-door sedan configuration.
Right.
I've seen a couple of them, and they're really very attractive cars.
So this is a bracket for mounting the spare tire, I guess.
Right, and the idea here was that we want to be able to, the spare tire, these cars were built for people that, for instance, didn't necessarily have a lot of strength, so they were trying to, this was back when they first recognized the fact that women were starting to drive, and they were starting to, you know, play to them, because they were buying cars, and they were, you know, saying things like, well, you know, I can't get this spare tire out of here. How do you expect me to do that? I'm a woman. Right. So they made another device that allowed the thing to pivot backwards, and then the spare tire would simply come off, so that she didn't have to.
So that would pull almost all the way back.
Exactly.
Lay the tire down.
Lays the tire out on the ground, goes back and stows away, but you can still have this large area for trunk space.
Now, is the trunk space itself, is it different very much from the coupe to the sedan?
Well, not a lot, no. Remember that the sedan cuts down kind of like, it's a different idea altogether, but the coupe trunk is actually bigger, yes,
right?
because of the lack of a back seat.
Yeah.
And so it's really big back there, a lot of room. And a lot of them were used for business coupes, where if you are a businessman or an attorney or something, you wanted to put your stuff in the back, you had this big area in the back to carry your stuff.
So they had a transverse rear spring.
Right. Right. And that lasted for a lot of years and still functions. It was they were still using them in race cars in the mid-60s.
Yeah, it works.
The Cobras used them, and embarrassed a lot of Ferraris, and Jaguars, and Maseratis. And,
that's a long list.
And they had, they had a lot of very sophisticated stuff. It wasn't until Jaguar got disc brakes that they started winning. And that was the beginning of the Jaguar.
Okay, cool. Now, what about what can we scavenge here? There's another four-door car, another four-door car.
Right. Well, we buy them in whatever condition they are in at the moment. And then in some cases, like we used the front of this car to upgrade a car that had the front end wasn't very good. So instead of trying to fix it, we just cut it off and swapped it out. A lot quicker, a lot better. Alignment's extremely important with the doors and the hood and all that. So sometimes it's just impractical to try and straighten one. I have salvaged some cars that probably should have been thrown away, but they were coupes or convertibles, and so they got what they needed.
I got you. And now what about this car here?
That's another four-door sedan donor car that we'll use for a variety of things. We don't necessarily even know what we're going to be taking off of it or what we need until the need arises, but we're always looking for four doors that are kind of in this condition, because they still have a lot of really good parts that we can swap over. The dashes are the same, of course. Steering gear, everything from the cowl forward is the same car, so that gives us a lot to work with. And we also sometimes convert the four-door seats to two-door coupe seats.
Oh, I see.
Because some of the seats get lost over the years.
So
we've made 2 or 3 actually.
so with some work you can modify
Exactly. Well, the coupe seat and convertible is unique to that car. And if somebody took it out and threw it away, you got a problem, because it's a big part of the build and a big part of the beauty of these cars is their front seat.
Again, this looks like it was kept original.
Yeah, this is a Western car. This probably came out of Southern California.
Yeah.
And a lot of the cars that we get come out of New Mexico. This car came from New Mexico. Once we hear tell of them, you know, it's trailer up time.
Yeah.
You don't want to wait around.
Okay.